Becky Williams slipped the wedding ring onto Smart Reynolds' finger. Neither suspected their perfect scheme would unravel, not from being caught, but because their hearts would betray them. He turned, vulnerability raw on his face. "I came into this wanting to destroy a billionaire. I'm leaving wanting to build something with you that a maid, a hacker, and a fortune at stake." Welcome back, loyal viewers, and a special hello to new subscribers. Ready for another emotional journey? Today's story will make you question what's more valuable, revenge or unexpected love. Have you ever wanted revenge so badly you'd risk everything to get it? If this story resonates with you, hit that like button and subscribe for more tales that will leave you questioning what you'd do in the same situation. Becky Williams stood at the window of Kingston Manor, polishing the same spot of glass she'd been working on for 10 minutes. But her eyes weren't focused on the smudges. They were fixed on the reflection of Lawrence Kingston, billionaire extraordinaire, as he clutched his chest and discreetly swallowed another pill when he thought no one was watching. 3 years she'd worked in this mansion. 3 years of yes, sir, and right away, sir, while the man who destroyed her family lived in obscene luxury. The same man whose corporate takeover had crushed her father's business, blacklisted her from every financial firm despite her honors degree, and forced her to don this humiliating uniform just to help put her siblings through school. But fate had finally dealt Becky a winning hand. Last week, while organizing Kingston's medical files, she discovered his secret: terminal heart disease. 6 months to live, maybe less. And more importantly, no finalized will and no living heirs. The plan crystallized in her mind that very night. A husband would make her seem more stable, more deserving of Kingston's trust during his final months. Someone with the skills to navigate Kingston's digital empire. Someone with nothing to lose and everything to gain. That's how she found herself in a dingy cafe across from Smart Reynolds, an ex-con cybersecurity genius whose penetrating gaze seemed to strip away her carefully constructed facade. $20 million, she whispered, sliding a folder across the table. Half now, half when it's done. Smart's fingers hovered over the folder. "And all I have to do is marry you and help you rob a dying man." Becky leaned forward, her voice dropping to an icy whisper. "Not rob. Redistribute. There's a difference." What she didn't tell him was that Kingston Enterprises had developed a facial recognition software that had wrongfully sent Smart to prison 3 years ago. Some secrets were better kept, at least for now. The courthouse wedding took exactly 7 minutes. No flowers, no family, just paperwork and a kiss so brief it barely registered. Smart slipped the cheap gold band onto Becky's finger with surprising gentleness, his calloused thumb lingering against her palm a moment too long. "Congratulations," the clerk mumbled without looking up. Next, their plan required precision. Smart moved into a small apartment near Kingston's estate, close enough to maintain their cover story, far enough to keep their sanity. They spent nights crafting their fictional romance, building digital footprints, staging photos in various locations. Smart hacked into databases, creating a relationship history so convincing even Becky sometimes caught herself believing it. "Kingston's invited us to dinner next Friday," Becky announced one evening, entering Smart's apartment without knocking. "He wants to meet my mysterious new husband." Smart looked up from his laptop. "Isn't that a bit fast? We've only been married for 3 weeks. He's dying. Everything's fast for him now." Her voice held no sympathy, but something flickered in her eyes. Doubt, perhaps. "We need to be convincing." "I can be convincing," Smart replied, his gaze holding hers a beat longer than necessary. "Question is, can you?" The dinner was a masterclass in deception. Smart charmed Kingston with his knowledge of cybersecurity, carefully omitting his criminal record. Kingston, surprisingly, seemed genuinely interested, not just in Smart's expertise, but in their relationship. "How did you two meet?" Kingston asked, swirling expensive scotch in a crystal glass. Smart reached for Becky's hand across the table. The script they'd rehearsed was ready on his lips, but instead, he said, "She was reading Crime and Punishment in a coffee shop. I told her Dostoevsky was overrated just to see if she'd argue with me." Becky's eyes widened slightly. This wasn't their practice story, but she recovered instantly. "He was trying to provoke me. Still does. Her smile seemed almost genuine. The best relationships have that spark. Kingston nodded approvingly. My late wife and I argued about everything from politics to pasta sauce. Something shifted that night. Kingston began inviting them regularly, for dinners, for weekend sailing, for private screenings in his home theater. Each time, Smart and Becky performed their roles flawlessly, yet something unscripted was developing between them. It happened during their fourth dinner at Kingston Manor. Smart noticed Becky's hand trembling slightly as she poured tea. Kingston had just mentioned her father's name in passing, a business contemporary he claimed to barely remember. The teacup rattled against the saucer. Without thinking, Smart steadied her hand with his own. "Careful, love," he murmured. The endearment slipped out unplanned. Later that night, walking to their separate cars, Smart confronted her. "You nearly lost it in there. This only works if we stay detached." "I am detached," Becky snapped, keys clutched tight in her fist. "Your father's business. That's what this is really about, isn't it? Not just the money. Stay focused on your part of the deal," she warned, but her voice lacked conviction. Smart caught her arm as she turned to leave. Kingston mentioned installing new security protocols next week. "I'll need access to his office." "I'll get you in," she promised, pulling away from his touch. What neither admitted was how the line between performance and reality was blurring. How Smart found himself watching Becky when she wasn't looking. The way she tucked her hair behind her ear when concentrating. How her professional mask slipped when she spoke about her siblings. How Becky caught herself wondering about the scar on Smart's left wrist, about what made him laugh genuinely versus the calculated charm he displayed for Kingston. They were actors playing parts, yet something authentic was emerging from the deception, something neither had anticipated and both feared would jeopardize everything they'd planned. "Pack for the weekend. Kingston's invited us to his island." Becky's voice crackled through Smart's phone, tension evident despite the poor connection. The private island off the coast was Kingston's sanctuary, 50 acres of pristine beaches and old-growth forest surrounding a modernist glass mansion. As the helicopter descended, Smart felt Becky stiffen beside him. "One bedroom," she whispered, her breath warm against his ear. "We'll have to share." That night, after a dinner where Kingston reminisced about business triumphs that made Becky's jaw clench, they found themselves trapped in coastal luxury. A California king bed between them like a demilitarized zone. "Take the bed," Smart offered, grabbing a pillow for the chaise lounge. "Don't be ridiculous. We're supposed to be married." Becky slipped under the covers, turning her back to him. "Just stay on your side." At 3 a.m., a violent thunderstorm woke them. Smart found Becky standing at the window, silhouetted by lightning, arms wrapped around herself. "You okay?" he asked, approaching cautiously. "I hate storms," she admitted, flinching as thunder cracked overhead. "Childhood thing." Without thinking, he placed his hands on her shoulders. She didn't pull away. "Tell me something real," he said quietly. One true thing about Becky Williams. She was silent so long he thought she wouldn't answer. Then, "I was accepted to Harvard Business School. Full scholarship. The day after Kingston Enterprises absorbed my father's company, they rescinded the offer." Smart's hands tightened on her shoulders. "That's why you're really here." "Your turn," she whispered. "One true thing. I could have escaped prison after 3 months. I stayed because my mother was dying, and the prison hospital was better than what she could afford outside." The confession hung between them, unexpected and raw. When Becky turned, their faces were inches apart. The kiss that followed wasn't for show. No audience, no cameras, no scheme. Just two broken people finding momentary shelter in each other. Morning brought awkward silence and unspoken questions. Kingston, oblivious to their tension, invited Smart to tour his state-of-the-art security system while Becky joined his personal assistant for brunch. "You know," Kingston said, showing Smart his server room, "in my experience, the most dangerous security breaches come from those closest to us." His eyes, sharp despite his illness, studied Smart's reaction. That evening, Kingston requested Becky's company alone on the terrace. Through the glass doors, Smart watched their conversation grow intense, Kingston speaking earnestly, Becky's posture gradually softening from rigid defense to something like shock. When she returned, her face was pale. "He knows about my father," she said, voice hollow. "He apologized. Said it was one of his greatest regrets." "Do you believe him?" Smart asked. "I don't know what to believe anymore." Her eyes met his. "While you were touring his security system, did you plant the access device?" "Yes." Smart's voice hardened. "That was the plan, wasn't it?" The hurt in her eyes surprised him. "Without consulting me first?" "Since when do we need to consult each other? This is business, remember?" The lie tasted bitter on his tongue. Whatever was happening between them had stopped being just business the moment their lips met during the storm. The crystal champagne flute shattered against marble flooring, the sound cutting through ambient music and polite conversation. Kingston collapsed mid-sentence, clutching his chest, face contorted in pain. Chaos erupted in the dining room, guests gasping, security rushing forward, someone shouting for a doctor. Becky moved without thinking, kneeling beside Kingston, loosening his tie with practiced efficiency. "Call an ambulance," she ordered a stunned waiter. Her eyes met Smart's across the room, a silent message passing between them. This was their opportunity. While medical personnel stabilized Kingston, Smart slipped away toward the study. The security override he'd planted during their island visit would give him 15 minutes of camera blindness, enough time to access Kingston's private servers and plant the specialized program that would gradually transfer funds to their offshore accounts. His fingers flew across Kingston's keyboard, bypassing security protocols with practiced ease. But as encrypted files appeared on screen, Smart hesitated. Something wasn't right. He opened folder after folder, scanning documents that made his blood run cold. Kingston had been investigating them for months. Background checks, surveillance photos, detailed reports on both their pasts. But alongside this evidence was something else entirely. Documents showing Kingston had already allocated 80% of his fortune to various charitable foundations, including a substantial endowment for business education scholarships specifically targeting families affected by corporate takeovers. And there, in a folder labeled Reconciliation, was a file on Becky's father, complete with Kingston's personal notes about making amends. Smart's phone vibrated. A text from Becky. "They're taking him to Memorial Hospital. Where are you?" He closed the files, mind racing. Should he tell her what he'd found? Would she believe him? He completed the hack as planned, but with one critical modification, then slipped out to meet Becky at the hospital. Hours later, in the sterile waiting room, Becky paced while Smart watched her, the weight of his discovery heavy between them. "You should have waited for my signal," she said finally, breaking the tense silence. "I did what needed to be done," he replied, the half-truth bitter on his tongue. "That wasn't your decision to make." Her voice cracked with unexpected emotion. "We're supposed to be partners in this." "Partners?" Smart stood, frustration boiling over. "Is that what we are, Becky? Because I thought this was just business. A transaction." "You know it's become more than that," she whispered, vulnerability breaking through her carefully constructed walls. Before he could respond, a doctor approached. "Mrs. Reynolds? Your employer is asking for you." Becky entered Kingston's room alone, her heart hammering against her ribs. The billionaire looked diminished against white hospital sheets, monitors beeping steadily beside him. "Becky." Kingston's voice was weak, but his eyes were sharp. "Please sit." She perched on the edge of the visitor's chair, hands clasped tightly in her lap. "I don't have much time for games anymore," he said without preamble. "So let's be honest with each other." He reached for a tablet on his bedside table, tapping the screen before turning it toward her. On display were security camera feeds, Smart in his office, planting the device during their island visit, the two of them in various stages of their scheme. "I've known from the beginning," Kingston said quietly. "The sudden marriage, the convenient interest in my business affairs." Becky's throat constricted, but she maintained her composure. "If you knew, why didn't you fire me? Have us arrested?" Kingston's laugh turned into a painful cough. "Because I deserved it," he said when he recovered. "Your father's company, Williams Financial Solutions, I remember it well. One of many I destroyed building my empire." He reached for her hand, surprising her. "I was ruthless, Becky. Cruel, even. It took facing my own mortality to recognize the damage I've done. So this is what absolution? Letting me rob you to clear your conscience? No. Kingston shook his head. This is an opportunity. For both of us. He handed her a legal document. I'm offering you a choice. Continue with your plan, which, by the way, I won't oppose, or become the legitimate executor of my charitable foundation. Becky stared at the document, mind reeling. Why would you trust me with this? Because you're brilliant. Because, despite everything, you've shown genuine care for me these past months. And because, his eyes held hers, people deserve second chances, both of us included. As Becky left the hospital room, the weight of Kingston's offer pressing against her chest, she found Smart waiting, his expression unreadable. He knows everything, she said simply. Smart nodded slowly. I know. There's something I need to tell you. 3 days. 72 hours of unanswered calls and empty apartment spaces where Becky should have been. Smart paced the floor of their shared deception, surrounded by half-packed bags, their escape plan now suspended in uncertainty. When the door finally opened, he wasn't prepared for the calm determination in her eyes. You're leaving, she stated, noting the luggage. Isn't that what we always planned? Take the money and run. His voice carried an edge of bitterness. Did you transfer the funds like we discussed? Smart hesitated. I set up the program, but I modified it. The transfer won't complete without a second authorization code from you. Why would you do that? Because I found something in Kingston's files. He told her everything, the charitable foundations, the scholarships, the folder with her father's name. He's been trying to make amends, Becky. In his own way. She sank onto the couch, the weight of revelation settling on her shoulders. He offered me a position, running his foundation. Said I could do more good with his billions than either of us could by stealing them. And what did you say? I left. Needed to think. She looked up at him. What would you do? Smart sat beside her, careful to maintain distance between them. The Smart Reynolds who agreed to this scheme would take whatever he could get and disappear. But I'm not sure that's who I am anymore. Kingston asked me why I married you specifically. Said he'd investigated dozens of hackers I could have chosen. Her eyes searched his. I told him it was your skill set. But that wasn't the whole truth. What was the truth? I chose you because when I researched your case, I saw someone who'd been wronged by the same system that destroyed my family. Someone who might understand. Her voice softened. I didn't expect to actually understand you. Or to care. Smart reached for her hand, his thumb tracing the cheap wedding band she still wore. So what happens now? I'm taking Kingston's offer, she said with quiet certainty. Not for the money or power, but because it's a chance to create something better than revenge. And us. This marriage of convenience. The papers are in my car. We can end it today, just like we planned. She slipped the ring from her finger, placing it on the coffee table between them. You're free to go, Smart. Take your share of what we've already moved. Start fresh somewhere. He stood, moving toward the door, the weight of endings heavy in each step. At the threshold, he paused. You know what's ironic, he said without turning. I've spent my life breaking into systems, computers, security, corporations. But you, his voice broke slightly. You're the only one who broke into me. He turned, vulnerability raw on his face. I came into this wanting to destroy a billionaire. I'm leaving wanting to build something with you. If that's even possible now. 6 months transformed everything. Kingston Enterprises restructured under Becky's guidance, the foundation already funding programs for business education in underserved communities. Kingston, defying medical predictions, seemed reinvigorated by his new purpose. Smart used his skills legitimately now, developing security systems for small businesses vulnerable to corporate espionage. The apartment they shared was modest, nothing like Kingston's mansion, but it was built on truth, not deception. They visited Kingston after another cardiac episode, finding him weaker, but still sharp-minded. He handed them an envelope, inside, a deed to a small technology incubator space. Consider it a real wedding present, Kingston said with a knowing smile. for when you decide to make honest people of each other. Outside the hospital, Smart took Becky's hand, slipping a new ring onto her finger. Not gold this time, but silicon and copper wire he'd crafted himself. "We started with a fake marriage to steal a fortune," he said quietly. "What do you think about a real marriage to build something better?" Becky's answer was a kiss. No calculation, no scheme. Just the certainty that sometimes the greatest wealth comes disguised as love found in the most unlikely circumstances. Sometimes the most valuable things can't be stolen or bought. They must be earned through transformation. Becky and Smart discovered that revenge's sweetness pales compared to redemption's power. True wealth isn't measured in billions, but in second chances and the courage to build something authentic from deception's ashes. If this story touched your heart, hit subscribe for more emotional journeys like this one. Have you ever found love in the most unexpected circumstances? Share your story in the comments below. And remember, sometimes our most carefully calculated plans fail in the most beautiful ways possible.